Hello and welcome back to part 3 of Out of Time. And we are going to pick up where I left off. Let me gather my place. I just want to make sure that I did not forget any parts when I was last talking to you. And through that, we went through that. Yeah, I think we're right here. So basically, we left off with the insurance policy. First, I'm hearing in the spirit that the counterfeit wanted insurance. The counterfeit needed to have an insurance that she could, how do I phrase this? That she could pin on him through a setup that even if all things came out right, that insurance policy was going to catch him up. Sometimes these counterfeits that were in the lives of your ex-husband that you are meant to reunite with, they had insurance. They were using some type of insurance. I linked in my very last video the Black Magic Black Widow video from Pt3, which explains a lot about the type of witchcraft that these counterfeits will do. And in it, it kind of expresses that insurance. They want to make sure that they set this man up in a way that they will either be deemed crazy, that they will end up in jail, or end up losing everything and end up out on the street homeless. And Stephanie P has done a word where she talked about that exact setup, that it's something that happens to children of God anyway. But in knowing this, I was doing a bit of, not so much research, I was spiritually going over some things with the Lord yesterday. And it comes to the understanding that in having this incentive, which is like their insurance policy, that they can set this man up to get them in whatever way that they're trying to set them up. But we, as the godly spouse, I don't know if I have said this before. I was listening to Tiffany Montgomery. She did a ministry and she told this story and it was perfect. That we praying. As the God ordained spouse, you are praying for this man. If God's told you that this man is your man and that, yes, your marriage ended. Yes, they are a prodigal. And yes, they out there acting like a fool and rebelling. But that's your man. And he has not rewritten your love story. And he's saying, no, I want you to stand for this one because this one needs your prayers. And because of that, what the enemy's doing is they are trying to set that person up in order to either make it so when they get to you, they'll kirk out, or that they have set up a series of setups that by the time they reach you, that they can be incarcerated or something like this. Because look at the situation in this film. He's in a scenario that if he gets caught in the middle of it, and they actually catch up to what's been going on, he's going to jail for having killed this person. Not to mention the money that he took from the evidence locker, that could put him in jail. So he got two things coming at him that could put him in jail. Not to mention the insurance policy, which could be a hindrance to him. Not so much that he could be put in jail for it, but the involvement, all of it's looking bad for him. Getting back to what I was saying about Tiffany Montgomery, she did a word where she talked about how these women, when they set up a man in such a way, by using witchcraft, using spells, using whatever it is that they use in order to keep them entertaining them so that they can set them up, that the wife, they have no idea the strength of the wife. That the wife, if you are the wife and your prayers to God, God honors your prayers. Don't give a darn about what they say at all, because they ain't walking with him. And because that is not their spouse, anything they say makes no impact. The only thing that the Lord is honoring is your prayers. So as the wife who was sitting in the midst of it, she had the ability to survey the situation. You have had the ability to survey the situation, and not only have you surveyed it, you have been in prayer about it. Now, the story in which Tiffany told was about this woman who was observing a counterfeit trying to set her husband up. And she was still in the marriage with the person, as far as I can understand, that this woman was still in the marriage. And the woman was trying to take her husband out of their household. This woman had him so open in the nose that he kept going over there. And all the wife did was said, Lord, you understand what is going on. You see what is going on. My prayer is that you remove the issue. That woman dropped dead. Which basically means that if they were praying for their spouse, if you've been praying for your spouse, if you've been observing, you've been doing the research, you've looked up all the things in association with the issues that have been going on within your marriage, you have been the surveyor that has been observing and doing the investigation like this wife was doing. She was investigating the crime as it went forward and gaining the information. And as she gained the information, as you gain the information through your spiritual investigation, what happened? You were able to take that into the spirit before the courts of heaven and say, I am placing this before you for spiritual judicial action. Let me tell you something. This is a side note that you can use for your own spiritual understanding, okay? Because I did this for my own God-ordained spouse. I go before the courts of heaven as his advocate, as his lawyer. In the spirit. That as he is brought before the courts of heaven, that do not stand and look at him. Go forth and look into the Bible and look up Exodus. There's a scripture that says that, I think it's Exodus 25, but I'm not sure the exact verse, that literally says that you are standing in the gap for this person. You stand in the gap for this person and you declare the scriptures over the person as you untie their bondages, okay, in the spirit, and remove the cord. Whatever rope's tying them up, whether it's around their abdomen, whether it's around their arms, hands, legs, whatever the chain that is binding them. You call out what you know their bondages are, because you've been married to them. You know their bondages. You call those bondages out. You bring scripture in alignment with the bondage in which they have. You set that before the Lord and say, Lord, this is my God-ordained spouse's bondage. But it says in your word that I can take each and every one of these bondages that is a spirit, and I set each and every single one of these bondages that is a spirit before you, that you will now take the very same tie that tied my God-ordained spouse up and tie them up. That the yoke that was put on my God-ordained spouse, you will yoke them around their neck, as according to Isaiah 10 and 27, that they have become too slippery that the yoke slipped off. Once the yoke slipped off, you snap that yoke upon each of these spirits' necks. Hog-tied them with the very same cords that they try to hold your spouse with. Oh, you don't know this. Honey child, take notes. Very same cord, whatever that is. And then you will make these enemies will become your footstool. And they will then be sat before the Lord, as according to Acts, either Acts 17 or Acts 18, or Acts 17 verse 17 or 18. It's Acts 18 verse 16 or 17. That states that they will be brought before the judgment seat. And there is a word called Pt3. Pt3 means their power will be then stripped from them. Are you paying attention? Are you taking notes? Their power will be stripped from them, and then, as according to that scripture, they will be beaten before the judgment seat. What do you think this was? This was a fight. This was a fight. This was a fight. I had to use that prayer recently. Okay? Now, getting back to what I was saying about the story that woman told, that woman died. The woman that was coming against that woman's husband dropped dead. And the wife ironed her husband's clothes so that he could go to her funeral. These Jezebels be playing. But they better get it right, because God gonna take them out, because they ain't the wife. God'll do it. God'll do it. Anyway, getting back to the movie. Where were we? So they ended up needing to get the phone records. Problem. Husband sat up there and he been calling her house. So because of that, his name's on the phone records. So he trying to get the phone records. He gets the copy that originally printed, because they called for the phone records. The phone records printed. He snatched it before they could get it. Took it to his computer, scanned it in, removed his name from all the record, fixed it so that it was back in alignment so it looked like his name had never been there. And he had to reprint it. because they were screaming, I still ain't got the records. Can you bring me the records, please? Sometimes your God-to-day spouse, a lot of y'all been wondering, where he at? What is he doing? What is all that? He's trying to cover his own tracks, is what he's been doing. Because he doesn't want you to know, but you already know. You can already suspect something's a little off, because she would look back into his office and be like, what is he doing? Then he would come out, and then he came out, and he was like, let me check that again for you. And he unplugged it because he needed to make sure that his went to the printer first. So they tried to send it again, and it wouldn't go. So he pulls the paper out so that it won't print. Makes sure that it finishes with what he's doing, comes back, he taps it, trying to act like, oh, this thing acts up every once in a while. He sits there and he plugs it back in. And they're like, but it's still not printing. It's like, oh, let me check. Oh, the tray ain't have no paper. And they're like, oh, the tray ain't have no paper in it. He puts the paper in there. And he makes sure that it's his print that comes up first. But when it printed suede and a little bit blotchy. But he's like, don't worry about it. I got it. I can read it. Don't. She's like, it's ugly. Let me just. She's like, no, don't worry. No worry. I can read it. He's like, I can read it. These men be trying to cover for themselves because they don't want you to know what they doing. So they go check out the next thing. The prints on the pen come back. It's for Paul Cabot. So him and his guy friend, I believe, is this when they go first? Do they go first there, or do they go? They go to his house. They go to Paul Cabot's address where he's staying. And they go and inspect his entire apartment. Once they found the information that they were looking for at the apartment, they ended up finding his work ID. Once they found his work ID, they were able to go and track where this guy came from, which was a hotel. He was staying at a hotel. He comes back and meets her, and they're supposed to go to the hotel together. But he takes his vehicle and goes ahead of her because he doesn't want her to catch him, because he's got to talk to this guy first. So he gets to the hotel. He lies and says that he's Paul Cabot and he done forgot his key and his all this type of stuff. He gets up to the room, and it's so funny because the guy had left the TV on and he was watching Legally Blonde. I think there was a joke in that somewhere. So the guy jumps out the closet. Him and the guy end up in a fight. They end up falling over the banister. The banister comes off the hinges and is hanging expeditiously along the edge. And he manages to kick the guy and he falls off. So he crawls up just as people are starting to come to see the body. So nobody sees exactly who's in the hotel room. He goes, finds the money, all there, takes the suitcase, and leaves out like he's chill. He comes back to back stairwell. She's arriving with the rest of the team, asking about Paul Cabot's room. And he comes down the stairwell, and right as he's coming in, the receptionist guy is at the door. He punches the guy before he can say anything. So he takes the stairwell and runs up when he hears her in the stairwell, he runs back down like he ran past me. I don't know where he went. And she goes as if she gonna go, but he gotta run and grab the suitcase and put it back in the truck. He goes and sits in the car trying to get himself together. And then she comes out and meets him in the car and says, I thought we were supposed to be going together. These men, as they are trying to cover up their trail of the things in which they were doing, still don't seem to understand. We're on their tail. Our spiritual wisdom to their actions, we can tell what they're doing, even if they can't see us understanding it. And we're praying for them. Because God has given you dreams, and you know, especially if y'all was married to this person, you were sleeping with this person, you were whatever, God has given you very detailed dreams of what has been going on with this man in relation to what he's been going through. And you've been interceding, and the inquisitiveness has made you be like, God, you want me to confront them about this? And some of y'all reached out, and God was like, don't say that. I don't need you to say that. I don't need you to interfere with that. I need you to keep your mouth shut. I know you want to say something because I know you know, and y'all know when y'all knew. But I'm going to need you to keep your mouth shut because I'm doing something with him, and you about to mess up what I'm doing with him if you let him know that you know. Tell the truth, shame the devil. You know that you wanted to interfere because you're the wife. Plus, you're the investigator. And because you're the investigator, you want answers. You're the solutionist. If you give me the answer, I can give you the solution. And God's been like, it's your mouth. It's your mouth. But it's your mouth. Now, he gets back to, well, actually, they don't go to the office. They go to dinner first. Because she want to talk to him. She know what she know. But she wants him to talk to her. Coming back to what I just said, God may have given you permission to open your mouth and talk to them, but not to address what it is that has been going on, because you're going to scare them away from you by addressing what is plain as day to you, but not to them. And God's been grooming you in your season of preparation to return to the relationship. Don't say nothing. Some of y'all have been allowed to comment, text them, have very surface conversation with them. And a lot of the people, there was a person named Tenant OX. She did a video called He's Going to Be Crying, where it talked about, and I heard this from a couple different people, when you and your God-ordained spouse, especially those of you that are reuniting with your spouse, that first conversation, you have to let them talk. Allow them to talk. No judgment. No, because we as women, because we're the solutionists and we understand the situation and it's taking them forever to address it, and you're sitting up there, can we finish this like this? Because he taking forever. And God's like, I'm trying to teach him a lesson of understanding how to move. I know you done figured out from A to Z this whole situation, but I need you to just listen to what they have to say. Listen to them. Don't judge. Be supportive. They will speak when it's time to speak on that, but don't force them into it. And I'm getting right now to say this. I remember when I was still in my counterfeit, we had a reconciliation moment in the counterfeit relationship. And I remember that first conversation we had. I was very disgruntled in that conversation. I was like, I don't care, whatever, you whatever. And he came to me and he talked to me. He admitted he had done this and he admitted he had done that and all of this type of stuff. And I was sitting there like, But I'm going to tell you what I did wrong. I heard everything he had to say. Within 24 hours, I started to really think about what he said when he finally admitted himself. And actually, was that conversation, or was that the conversation that he finally admitted? No, that was that conversation. It was within 24 hours. I blew up on him. Because I'm that slow to anger. Oh, I will hear everything you said, but the slow to anger comes as I slowly steep. I heard what you said. My brain started to dissect it over the next 24 hours. I began to put the pieces together of what you actually said to me. And the next time I talked to you, then I cussed you out. God saying, no, do not do that. I need you to be at peace with this person because they are going through something. Hear them. Do not react. So what did the woman do? She sat and she talked to him. And they had she kind of was trying to give him, are you okay? I kind of understand that something is here. And I understand that you are going through something here. And because of this, is there anything you would like to say to me? Pretty much saying, I would like you to admit what you've done. That way we can talk about it right now. But if you don't admit it, I can't talk about it. And that's where a lot of you are. You're like, if he would just talk to me, we could talk about this. And God's like, I'm not going to make him talk to you about that thing yet because you're not ready to be mature enough to handle it. Oops. So she ends up pulling a piece of glass out of his hair, coming to the understanding, oh, and she's starting to put more pieces together because that's what we do. So they end up getting back to the office. And she knows what she knows, and he knows what he knows. And they're pretty much having a walk of solemnness because she's like, I know that this is coming to a head, and he knows I got to figure this thing out. Both of them mentally thinking two different things. He gets to his office, and he's sitting there at the computer. Now, he's already had his friend take the money in order to get it ready to be taken over. But he gets a phone call. Let me explain something to you. And some of y'all have went through this. Every time you get close to coming back into alignment with your God-ordained spouse, the enemy will send that one last tactic, and I've been talking about this. We've spoken about this before. That he'll send a candidate back one more time, just one more time, of one of two ways. To either set them up that I'm going to take them out now, meaning I'm going to really get them in prison now, or I'm going to really set them up that the wife won't take them back, or it's whatever they're set up. But they don't understand that the setup is setting them up. Because God already knows that you've been praying. So this situation that is the last showdown between him and this particular person, you already been covering them. So whatever it was is going to go down in this last showdown. But they are already in a fixed fight. They don't know that because you've been praying for them, but the fight is fixed. Some of them, by the time that this last call come in, they're going to be so far removed from the desire to want this person. And I said it before, I did a short on this recently, where the man is pretty much like, I don't want you no more. I don't want you no more. I don't want you. And it's like, but I mean, I'm doing the thing that always got me in the door before. I don't want you. But I don't want you. I don't want you. So he ends up going to the location for the last showdown. And the assumption is that she's being held hostage by the husband who planned the whole thing. It didn't cross his mind that she wasn't innocent in this at all. Because he's still thinking that she's innocent. Oh, he forced her into doing it. Bro, wasn't that smart? So, they get there. Or shall I say, he gets there. He arrives. Him and her husband get into a fight. They tussle. He shoots at him. He tells him that there ain't enough bullets in that gun. You can't shoot me no more. They end up tussling, and then he ends up shooting and killing him. Actually, no. She shoots and kills him. And it's assumed, oh, she was trying to protect Chief Whitlock or Matt. And this is the moment in which he discovers she was the mastermind behind this whole thing. A lot of cases, these men, especially if they were good-hearted people, some of your goddamn spouses are carrying to their own default. They did not see past the sex. They did not see that this woman had any brains.